presentation are the results of it. Can high school students be taught tolerance? What is the result when I teach 3 lessons about tolerance to 12th grade students? I compare a pre-test to a post-test to discover if students are more tolerant of the personal belief system of any other person. Problems I could potentially find are differences in tolerances, lack of understanding leading to intolerance and fear, and a denial of dignity and worth of others. Research shows from early on that intolerance comes from denial of dignity, denial of work, due in part to things that are both somewhat in control of the person, religion or economic group, and things that are not in a person's control, race or gender. Research also shows hostility towards a person just because a specific group is presumed to have objectionable qualities. For instance, the thing blondes are dumb. Research shows beginning at age 2, children start developing discriminatory perceptions of bias and prejudice, which can lead to racist or other discriminatory behaviors. The problem isn't the difference, but how people value and respond to differences. Creating anti-bias classrooms that include parents can be successful. Involving parents to help share their culture can affect attitudes positively and promote a sense of pride in the diversity of students. Educators can do more to promote responsible decisions about tolerance that is based on understanding the reasons that underlie conflicting claims about moral and social issues in society. Having credibility in a classroom will decrease students' tendencies to discredit teachers and increase the probability that this controversial instruction will be effective in promoting thoughtful consideration of moral issues. Students were given 2 separate articles to read, answer critical thinking questions for each article, and then were discussed in class. Each student was also required to research a controversial topic of his or her own choosing, write a paper about that topic from his or her point of view, supporting their own beliefs and or ideas. Additionally, that student was required to discuss at least one point of the opposing side and rebut it in the paper. This was to get students to acknowledge the opposing side, to understand what was being disagreed with. Surprisingly, some students didn't realize what precisely the opposition believed. All right, I'm sorry that this is really small. The white lines are the pretest. The teal blue was the post-test results. The gray tan color was a change in a positive direction. The yellow was a change in a negative direction. And the dark blue line is just the division between the control and the treatment groups of students. So one section I looked at was child rearing and communication. Students could choose either culture, religion, or both. Listed were the following categories: discipline, toilet training, self-help skills, vaccinations, alternative medicine, education, clothing, expectations of the future, family roles, gender roles, customs or superstitions, and perception of time. Change was counted, any kind of change was counted as a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 1, because that showed that the student was giving it thought. Positive change was counted when it changed from 1 culture or 2 religion to 3 both.
Those are the things that they could research about?
No. This was the pre and the post-test questionnaire. Had those questions on it. Results from the treatment group. The change was counted as change because that showed again that the student was giving it thought. And then positive change was again counted as change from culture or religion to both. From my project, I learned students can be taught tolerance from critical thinking exercises, and many students tend to think they were super tolerant on the post-test. Neither group had any students who claimed to not be tolerant at all. I was excited about that. Limitations, I believe I had included that I had a small sample size to work with. My control group was not given their pre-test back to just copy answers, so they had to go from memory. And it could have been possible for results to go negative because after the lessons, students may have discovered that they weren't as tolerant as they thought they were. And I would have liked to know what blank answers mean. Did they forget to fill it in or have no opinion? And were the results further complicated for students and their understanding due to the Michael Brown shooting, as this was completed not too far after that? It would be interesting to see how much the control group students might change if they were taught the same lesson, and how much tolerance is lost or not gained when tolerance is only taught once per year as opposed to perhaps monthly lessons. Since our world is getting smaller due to globalization, there's a huge need for tolerance in our world. Students who are able to develop an appreciation for tolerance and minority rights when there isn't strife going on are more likely to recognize intolerance and do something in times of crisis when civil liberties may be limited. Hopefully, students will also be able to 1. Notice, 2. Consider, and then 3. Dismiss irrational attitudes that lead to intolerance, bias, prejudice, and bigotry. Thank you for coming and for listening. Please fill out the evaluation form. Your comments are appreciated. Thank you. Yay! Any questions?
Was it an action research project or a research report?
It was an action research project.
But I mean, presentation?
Oh, for them?
No, like